From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Welcome to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. I'm Tyne Morgan, and here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. It was a busy week of planting for some as the slow start to planting continues for others.
Soil temps are in the low 30s and not a lot of sunny days, and forecast has more rain in it.
And now the White House is stepping in with a plan to boost production.
Our farmers are helping on both fronts, reducing the food cost of price of food at home and expanding production and feeding the world in need.
And one Ukrainian is now on a mission to dig up farmer support.
Territories that were under occupation but got freed up, they have a huge risk of their mines.
And in John's world,
shipping over the top.
now for the news. As planting kicks into high gear across the country, we're getting a better picture of what USDA thinks yields could be, not only for the U.S. crop, but also production and grain supplies worldwide. That's as the department released its first official balance sheet for this year's harvest in the U.S. So let's start with those yield predictions, and wheat forecasters calling for 46.6 bushels per acre in yield, 2.5 bushels less than what was predicted at the last Ag Outlook Forum in February, but it is up from last year. That has production 83 million bushels higher than a year ago due to better yields offsetting a decrease in harvested area. Now that said, abandonment for winter wheat is the highest since 2002, with the highest levels in Texas and Oklahoma. That was one surprise, but here was the other. Corn, that yield coming in at 177 bushels an acre. That's down 4 bushels per acre from the Outlook Forum. Production at 14.5 billion bushels, down more than 4% from last year. USDA saying that the very slow start to the planting season in the major corn producing states factored into the yield drop decision that they made in this report. And as for soybeans, they're sticking with the prediction of 51.5 bushels an acre for soybeans, but calling for the crop to be 5% bigger than last year's. And cotton, a big market mover, after the report came out, the agency expecting abandonment to more than double this year. Production is forecast at 16.5 million bales. That's based on 12.2 million planted acres from the March prospective plantings report. But that harvested area, that's expected to fall 1.1 million acres to 9.1 million. And that is all due to the drought in the Southwest. It also says exports are expected to fall slightly. We'll take a much deeper dive into the numbers as well as look at the world grain supply situation and the impact that those changes had coming up in our marketing roundtables. Well, April's consumer price index is still near historic highs at 8.3%, but it was slightly lower than what we saw in March. The Labor Department says on a month-to-month basis, prices rose 0.3% from March to April. That's the smallest increase in 8 months. Experts say prices will likely remain high over the summer, but they do say that this new data does suggest the inflation peak in terms of percentage increase could be behind us. But for now, higher food and energy costs do remain, and the White House is blaming the war in Ukraine for adding fuel to the inflation fire. Well, President Biden traveling to an Illinois farm this week, announcing new actions aimed at boosting food production across the world, along with lowering food prices. And he was joined by Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, announcing a plan to increase production by increasing the number of counties eligible for double cropping insurance here in the U.S. and to costs for farmers by increasing technical assistance for technology-driven precision agriculture. And the White House also announcing doubling the funding for domestic fertilizer production from $250 million to $500 million.
Farmers worried about rising fertilizer costs and what is the content of the fertilizer. That's why earlier this year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced it would invest $250 million to boost fertilizer production. Literally on the plane out here on Air Force One, I turned to Tom and I said, Tom, double that. Make it $500 million. It's so desperately needed. We can't take chances. It's critical to get this done.
Right now, many farmers are concerned what impact fertilizer prices and the late planting season will have on crop yields this year. StoneX Group creating these graphics that show just how much fertilizer prices have skyrocketed since last spring. Josh Linville with StoneX follows the fertilizer market extremely closely. He says the late planting season means the supply chain system is getting jammed up due to the expectations that many had for an early spring just a few months ago. He says the late planting season means the supply chain system is getting jammed up due to the expectations that many had for an early spring just a few months ago. Well, on top of the high fertilizer prices farmers and ranchers are facing right now, you have record high gas and diesel prices, and now there's concerns about a diesel shortage. AAA reporting that the national average price for a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline shot up to $4.37 a gallon on Tuesday. That wipes out the record hit just in March of $4.33. Diesel prices also sending shockwaves, hitting $5.55 a gallon on Tuesday. Peter Meyer of S&P Global Commodity Insights telling us that diesel supply is short all over the world due to sanctions against Russia combined with demand bouncing back following the pandemic. So supplies at the New York Harbor, a major hub for diesel distribution, that is now at a 30-year low. But it's not a shortage of oil in the U.S. that's causing it. It's a shortage of refining capacity on the East Coast. And just weeks after FBI put agriculture on high alert about potential ransomware attacks, there's been another ransomware attack on agriculture, this time targeting AGCO. The company announcing the attack occurred on May 5th. The worldwide manufacturer and distributor of ag equipment saying that it impacted some of its production facilities. AGCO adds that it's still investigating the extent of the attack, but anticipates that its business operations would be adversely affected for several days and potentially longer. It says it would all depend on how quickly it's able to repair its systems. All right, that's it for the news. So how could the spring planting window shape up this coming week? We'll have a check of your forecast with Matt Yurosavik next.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at UnitedPorkAmericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.